Hello and welcome back to the Triangle Nursery channel. I'm Debbie and today we're stepping into the festive season with one of my favourite Christmas projects, a beautiful seasonal garland made with fresh spruce, pinus and conifer. Now whether you're draping it along a mantelpiece, framing your front door or using it to decorate a banister or table, this classic style garland is guaranteed to add warmth, fragrance and festive charm to your home or event space. I'll guide you through building your garland base and share tips on how to personalise it with extras like berries, lights and even fresh flowers to really make it your own. Now here's what you'll need for this tutorial. 1 kilogram of spruce, 1 bunch of conifer, 25 stems of Pinus strobus, and basically any festive decor of your choice. I've got one of the sundry packs here from the Triangle Nursery Christmas range. Now the tools you'll need: binding wire, or you could actually use twine if you find that's easier and it's more eco-friendly, my scissors and a little bit of raffia. Now you can use stay wire to create the design for the base, which you can actually bind all of the items onto, or you could use Salix Salem if you wish. Now that is very messy to work with, so just to warn you, if you decide to use that as your option, make sure you make it in a workshop or outside and well away from your best furniture and cream carpet. So let's get started. So I'm going to start by attaching my binding wire to my first piece of spruce. Now simply twist that into position, and then I'm going to bind around the stem a couple of times, ensuring that the sharp end of the wire is placed back into the stem so it's not going to cause any problems or scratch the mantelpiece or table where it's placed, or actually pierce anybody's finger. So that's our starting point, and then I'm going to get some of the conifer and a couple of stems of the pinus, make those into a small grouping, then add those in. Now make sure that they're secured really tightly, and then you want part of the stem to protrude the whole way along, because that's what's going to create your base to place everything else back onto. So introducing another piece of the spruce, you can, as I said, group the items if you want to. So creating a small cluster, place that on top, and bind that into position as well. So the best way to get the items or the plant materials as tight as possible against that first foliage placement is to pull the reel towards yourself, and then you can feel it's nice and secure. Now depending on how wild you want the design to look, you can add larger pieces, or if you want to keep it more neat and tidy, then add smaller pieces. I want to create a lively look on this one. Place that bit first. then I'm continuing that base to bind onto. So this is how we're looking at the start. And if I turn it round, you can see a nice neat back to it. Okay. So obviously your placement is going to determine to a certain extent the dimensions of the garland that you create. I mean, if it is to be placed onto a mantelpiece, you're not really going to want it to be too three-dimensional. Two-dimensional will be fine because it's literally going to go against a wall and then drape over the front of the fireplace. So that's for a mantelpiece. For your table, obviously you don't want it to be too wide so it encompasses on your glassware and your crockery and your cutlery. So bear all those factors in mind when you create your design. You can, if you want to make the design wider, wire pieces up or wire some of the plant materials up separately and then add those in if you wish to. You might find it easier to handle them if you're not used to working with loose plant materials. If you've got them wired, then they're more secure. You just need to place them and add them in. Now something like this can be made in advance, but bear in mind that the plant materials are not going to be in water, so they're going to have a limited shelf life. What I would recommend you do is, if you're doing it a couple of days in advance, then just place it into a shallow bath of water so it can still continue to drink, and then remove it to remove any drippage before you place it in situation. And most homes are heated quite warm at Christmas or at this sort of seasonal time of year, so bear in mind that the ambient temperatures are going to be quite hot, so it's going to reduce the longevity of any plant materials, especially those that are out of water. Again, you can see how we're doing. This could easily be also used as a swag over the end of a staircase if you wanted it to, or actually you could hang it in your porchway as long as you've got a sufficient frame to hang it from. I'm going to save this nice strong branch to do my return end with. So once again, I'm cherry picking the foliage that I'm using. Now, if you want this to last for the whole season, bear in mind that it will start to dry. So if it's appropriate that it's placed somewhere where you can spray it and keep it well hydrated, that's a really good thing to do. But also, when stems dry out, they get much smaller. They dry and sort of shrivel almost, for want of a better word. So when that happens, especially important if you're hanging this design, you want some kind of security to stop them falling out. So, for example, with the spruce, when you bind onto the garland, bind around the pine needles. So that way, when that stem dries, it's not going to go anywhere because it's been bound in between the needles, and they're going to stop it from falling through the wire. And the same situation with the Pinus. If we just insert that here, just make sure that you wire through the pine needles. So again, when they dry out, that's not going to fall out of the design. Now if you are going to hang this, you may well want to make a swag of it. So if I just hold it up, you could add here a nice big seasonal bow, but make sure that you create a loop with the binding wire to actually secure it onto a hook or something similar. Now that's done really easily by binding the wire back on itself. Then create your loop, twist the wire together, and then push that free wire end back into the design. I'm going to stop there for the moment and then show you how to create the reverse end if you're making this design for a table. So I'm now going to finish off the garland. I'm going to create what we call the return end or the reverse end. So I'm going to use that piece of spruce that I mentioned to you before. So add that into the garland. I'm going to bind around that last branch. So remember I explained to you about that stopping it from falling through when it gets dry. And I'm going to add my pieces of conifer. Just going to trim that bit there. Bind those into position as well. And some more of the Pinus. I'm threading those in and under the other plant materials, but remember where the stems are, because you need to capture those with your binding wire to make sure they don't fall out. In my experience, this is the thing that people most struggle with to get that seamless finish. Obviously you've got plant materials that are going in different directions, so it's never going to have the same flow as it were all going in one direction, so that's always going to be part of the issue. But also it's quite hard because you're actually working back on yourself and covering ground that you've already covered. So building up foliage. Now you might find it easier, rather than trying to place items on top of the design. Actually, if I lift this slightly, you'll see what I mean. If you go underneath place them in the direction you want them to go. And then bind them in. Still remember, each time you put anything into the garland, make sure it's securely fastened. And continue building that up until that middle looks an integral part of the overall design. Now obviously, for demonstration purposes, this is not the true middle. It just gives you a bit of an indication on how to finish the design off. And then my last placement will be the last couple of pieces of spruce. See how I place those two pieces back to back and add those into the middle. Then once I'm happy with their being secure, I switch over to the other side. Now you can see where on the back here the stems are quite free. I'm going to bind up and around those stems just to make sure that they're nice and neat. And again, that will help to keep everything in position. I'm going to trim my reel wire. Thread that down into the base. See how nice and tight we're pulling those stems. And back in again. And use that final stem just to create a place to wire the final piece of reel wire around. There we go, and there you have it, our foliage garland. Now this is about a 3 to 4 foot garland that I've created, so perfect for a dining table or the top of a mantelpiece. Now you can add fresh flowers if you wanted to, so spray roses and carnations would work. I would suggest you add those on the day of the event, wire them in, or use a water file or tube so that they have their own hydration support. Now on this occasion I'm going to put dried fruits and cones into this design. Now I've pre-wired those. I'm just going to scoop those onto the table. Now I've got cones. I've wired up some of the fruit, and we have cinnamon. So just decide where you want to place all of the accessories, and it may be that you want just a cluster in the middle, and then perhaps you could put candles in as well, stand candle holders, or I'm going to do on this occasion a little random selection all the way over. Right, so I've wired the cones on a double leg mount, so place the wire either side of a piece of foliage, bring the ends of the wires together, and either pop the wire back against itself so no one gets spiked, or use wire cutters to actually remove the small piece of wire. Just a tip, if you leave them on a long wire, when you unbind them after Christmas they can be kept and used again next year. Now the raffia has been used as an accessory on the cinnamon. It's pre-wired in exactly the same way as the cones were. So again, bring the two ends of the wires together, pop the wire back into the garland, and if you want to, you can leave the raffia so it looks quite rustic, or that can actually be trimmed. So if you want to trim it to make it look more neat, just do so. Quick and simple. And then we have the orange. Now the orange is obviously a more vibrant colour than the other products, so if you keep that more focally placed, then that will give you more colour definition to the centre of the garland. And again, exactly the same principle. Bind it round a piece of the foliage, twist the two ends of the wires together, push the remaining wires back into the garland, and there you have it. Now I've wired the fruit into two slices each. I think that has more impact if you've got two pieces of fruit rather than one, but that's personal choice, entirely up to you. Then we have apples, and just continue doing that until you've used all of the accessories that you have up within the design. And there you have it, your own handmade Christmas garland ready to bring festive cheer to any space. What I love most about this project is that it's so versatile and adaptable. You can keep it traditional and green, or go bold with flowers, sparkle and colour. If you're making one for your own home or for a client, don't forget to tag us in your photos. We'd love to see how you bring these designs to life. Now for more festive inspiration, wreath kits and garland materials, visit our website. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss our next Christmas tutorial. Thanks for joining me today, and happy decorating.